South Africa is in a state of emergency, and it's insane. I mean, what do you expect from a country where the parliament looks like this?
You see, some of us don't know English properly. And then we can only come and say,
Honorable
hong, 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 like that.
Honorable
member.
Matisa.
Yes. Hong, hong, hong.
Honorable Matisa.
Hong, hong,
Honorable Matisa.
That's the only thing that she knows.
Honorable Matisa.
Yes.
You know when you're proven right, and you have every right in the world to go up to someone and say, I told you so. But you're the better man or better woman and you decide against it and you just keep your mouth shut. Well, this isn't one of those times. I'm going to say right now, I bloody told you so. Now, if you're wondering what I'm referring to, a number of years back in Beijing, I met up with a black South African lady who had a little bit of an issue with my videos about South Africa. You see, she thought that I was being unrealistic and too harsh in my criticism of South Africa. And we had a very reasonable chat, but constantly during the chat, she would push the ANC party line that, oh, there's nothing wrong and that it's, apartheid's fault, that the power systems are failing in South Africa and that the ANC government is going to fire up some old coal reactors. Everything's going to be fine. They know what they're doing. They're making a plan. Well, guess what? That's bullshit. They didn't make a plan. And now it's so bad in South Africa that the power is off between 6 and 13 hours a day. Now, I'm not making this up, guys. For this entire year so far, every single day of the year, the power has been off nationwide in South Africa. And it just depends on your area. And it depends on the time of year, but it can be up to 16 hours of power off during the day. Now, how this works, it's called load shedding, is you have an app from Eskom, which is the government-owned power company. And it will alert you. And it's going to say to you, hey, for instance, you're going to have your power cut between 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. Okay, and then you'll have it on for maybe 2 or 3 hours, and then it'll go off between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m., that type of thing, and it'll add up. So I'll just show you a screenshot. I asked my parents to send me a screenshot of their app the other day. Here it is, 11 and a half hours of power cuts on that particular day. Now, you might think to yourself, well, I mean, that's kind of crazy. And I'm pretty sure most of you out there aren't used to the idea of not having power at all. If you live in a developed country, even in the developing world, even if you're living in the backwaters of a developing world somewhere, you probably have more power on during the day than South Africa. But remember, this has happened every single day this year. And in the previous years, pretty much the whole year, it's the same deal. But you may not realize just how bad this is. Think about it. Just yourself. Not only do you have to power all your normal devices like phones and computers and, the usual stuff, watching TV, TVs, all your electronic devices that you use every day, that we take for granted, your Apple Watch, everything has to be charged. Everything needs power. Forget those amenities. Think about the basics, okay? You're coming home from work and your garage door doesn't open because there's no power. Do you understand how devastating that can be? To be locked out of your own house because you can't open up your electric gate, you can't open up your garage. Anyway, so you park your car, you manually unlock your door, you walk in, you pull that lever, you open up your garage, whatever, you can get into your house. Now you got no lights. What if you need to go to the gas station to get some gas? But the power is off and so the pumps aren't working, so you can't pump gas. Now, you might think that that's something that shouldn't happen, they'll have backup power. No. Before I left South Africa, this happened to me a number of times. I'd be very low on gas or petrol, and I'd go to the local petrol station, and the power would be off at the petrol station, and I couldn't pump petrol or gas into my car. And I'd have to make a plan and try to limp to the next station, in a different area or whatever to try and find petrol. It's basic things like this that you kind of don't think about. If you own a business, let's say a restaurant, how do you keep your food fresh? You have your meat, you have your vegetables, all your ingredients that are in the back in a big freezer or in fridges, and they're all refrigerated and so on. When the power goes off, all your food goes bad. Because sometimes the power goes off not just for a couple of hours, it can go off for an entire day or entire week in some cases. It depends on like the circumstances in the area. But currently you can be guaranteed the power is going to go off for at least 6 hours a day minimum. So there you got 6 hours of your refrigerators not working. Of course, you can't run a restaurant like that. Okay, and many have closed. Now, a lot of you might think, hey, well, what about just putting in a generator or some kind of solar panels and so on to mitigate this? Well, here's the thing. The average generator that you can buy, you pull start or, you buy these kind of fairly big, you can buy something from Harbor Freight or you can buy a Honda or whatever. Well, first of all, they're expensive. And second of all, they actually suck. You know the kind of generator that people take on an RV or they have in their shed or whatever? That cannot power an industrial-sized freezer in a restaurant. That cannot power the big air conditioning units that are necessary to keep the restaurant nice and cool. Those kind of things can power small appliances here and there. Yeah, it can power your personal fridge at home. It can power your TV, your very basics. But that can't power a business. If you're going to power up a restaurant, and I'm using a restaurant as an example here, but this, of course, applies to every kind of business out there, you need a big generator, something that's capable of putting out the amount of wattage and energy that's needed to run large-scale systems. They're very expensive to buy, incredibly expensive to buy, especially in South Africa. There's a premium on generators. They're incredibly expensive to run, not only just to maintain them, but to actually fuel them with gas or with diesel or whatever they run on. So if you're running a small restaurant, it kind of destroys your business because, well, not only do you have to deal with the lights going off and the air conditioners not working and all the food going bad in the back, but if you do manage to keep things running with generators and so on, now you've got a lot of noise. And second of all, it's going to cost you a lot more because now you've got a huge gas bill, as in a petrol bill that you have to pay on top of all your rent and your staffing and all that kind of stuff. So now you have to raise your prices. So you get the idea. It really doesn't work out. So lots of small businesses in South Africa have, of course, had to shut down because of this. And there's very little incentive to open a business under these circumstances. We spend a lot of our lives turning things on. It's always the beginning of something. It could be something fun, productive, wonderful, nerve-wracking, or just plain stupid. There is, however, one thing we should never, ever forget to turn on if we're using the internet, and that is a VPN. This video is brought to you by the VPN of my choice, Surfshark. And what is a VPN? Well, think of it as a secure tunnel that allows you to access anything online without prying eyes or even your internet service provider being able to see what you're doing.
It sucks being a single furry, am I right?
You know that incognito window thing? No, that's not hiding anything. A VPN will. VPNs are super useful to anyone who values their privacy and their data, and of course an absolute must-have for those of us who travel or use internet out there in the wild. The thing I like about Surfshark the most is that it provides all of this peace of mind and security without hassling me. Seriously, I may have to turn on all the devices I use, but Surfshark turns itself on, always keeping me safe and always having my back. The only time I need to fiddle with anything is when I'm choosing a specific server overseas so that I can watch a show that's blocked or unavailable in my country. Give Surfshark a shot. Go to surfshark.deals/SerpentZA and you'll get a massive discount off of a 2-year plan and 3 extra months completely free. And now, back to the show. Now it's getting worse, not better. And this state of emergency, the president, he declared a state of emergency over this power thing. And the only reason he declared a state of emergency is it gives the government certain leeway and powers to do things that normally would have to be approved through parliament and stuff. So if it's a state of emergency, they don't have to agree on, where this budget money goes. It can just be used because it's a state of emergency. So this state of emergency is just another excuse to steal money from the government. It's not actually going to repair anything, I'll tell you that much. A friend of mine received a letter from his insurance company in South Africa, and the insurance company said that they will not cover any costs or damage related to complete grid failure. Now, you know, when insurance companies are trying to cover their ass like that they suspect that something like that is going to happen. Why else would they be doing that? He's not the only one who's received that sort of letter from their insurance company in South Africa. For those of you who don't know what complete grid failure is, well, if you've ever seen the movie Mad Max, you know, 2, The Road Warrior, that's complete grid failure. That's when the entire power grid stops working. So you can no longer use the machinery to pump the fuel, to put into the trucks, to drive the trucks, to bring the fuel and the goods and the whatever's necessary to the different stations and power stations and the grocery stores and whatever. Everything grinds to a halt. The grocery stores no longer can fill the shelves because there's no transport anymore, right? Because everything's messed up. The computer systems that talk to each other to run everything that we're used to in our daily lives, like the traffic lights and, banking, all that kind of stuff, all shut down. Complete grid failure means complete chaos. Complete grid failure is a possibility for the near future in South Africa. Of course, everything is going to be done to prevent this, but I'm just saying, if insurance companies are worried about it happening and sending letters to their clients, you know that it's a definite possibility. So that's how it stands in South Africa. People are dealing with not having power every single day nationwide. But how did it get there? Well, it's quite simple. It's because the government wanted it to get there, or the government was too incompetent to prevent it from getting there, is actually more accurate. You see, the power infrastructure in South Africa was built during the 50s mostly, the current stuff. And for all intents and purposes, really good stuff, did the job. But when you've got aging power infrastructure like that, it needs to be maintained, it needs to be upgraded, it needs to be expanded. So when the ANC took over, they were given the playbook on how to do this. Jacob Zuma, in particular, decided to give all of the money that was supposed to be used to upgrade and maintain the infrastructure to his family members through corrupt tenderpreneurship and so on. So basically what he'd do is he'd say, okay, we need to upgrade the infrastructure. You're my cousin. I'm going to call you the new Minister of Upgrading Infrastructure. Here's a couple of billion rand tender. And go upgrade the infrastructure. But actually, don't worry about it. Just go buy yourself a bunch of BMWs and a mansion and call it a day. So that's oversimplification, of course. But billions and billions of rand that was meant to go to upgrading the infrastructure. Rand, by the way, is the South African funny money. It's the currency, which is completely useless now. So anyway, all the money that was supposed to go into upgrading the infrastructure and fixing it got flushed down the toilet to corruption, got given to family members. So the first solution is, of course, out the window. Now, you cannot really expect much from a government when the parliament looks like this.
Hong. To hell with you. I withdraw that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I withdraw.
Honorable Matisa.
So, of course, there is a way to quite easily overcome this issue, and that is to allow private energy companies in to generate electricity. And of course, I've seen this all over the United States. Every state seems to have its own little, power generation and gas provider and so on. And this is great because when you've got different power providers, of course, there's a lot of competition involved. They'll be striving to provide a better service than the other guy. They'll be doing things like undercutting the prices to make themselves look more attractive, to gain more clients. So it's very healthy. But the ANC government does not want private power companies to come in because then they won't get all the money. They won't be able to steal the money because you have to understand that power is something that is so essential that nobody can go without it. Everybody needs it. And so they have a stranglehold on every single citizen in South Africa. If you want power, the only way you can get it is to buy it from Eskom, the government-owned, ANC-owned, infiltrated, corrupted entity, Eskom. So if another provider came in and could suddenly provide better power, cheaper, everybody would immediately flock to them and the government would lose out on all those billions of rands of corrupt money to buy their latest Bentleys and private jets. I actually have a case in point. You see, here we have a small town in South Africa where a private company had set up a solar farm. Now, this solar farm was set up for their own purposes. They got permission to do it, but it was generating too much power, and much more power than they were using. So they put some of it back into the grid in the local area, and they actually pretty much got rid of load shedding for that little town. So the power wouldn't be going out during the day because they were able to put so much power back in. But the government actually sued them and prevented them from helping the local town have power during the day because they said it would set an unrealistic precedent, and other people around the country would want to have the same amount of power during the day or the same access, and so it's not something that they would allow. So they actually stopped them from doing it. You see, corruption in its pure form, like the ANC government, is something that simply cannot be tackled. You see, it's transparent corruption. Everybody knows the government is corrupt. They know everybody knows that they're corrupt, but nobody can do anything about it. So they just go on being corrupt. They'll sign away new laws. They'll sign new things into parliament. And all of it is in aid of their corruption. South Africa is a joke. It's what I said many years ago. It's what I've always said. There's a reason I left my country of birth. There's a reason why I will never go back. Anyone who is a South African knows exactly what I'm talking about. Doesn't matter. Even the people that are pro-ANC, they know that it's a corrupt mess of a government. It's a corrupt, useless government. And you know what? There's very little that can actually be done about it, unfortunately. Once again, I'm going to use this opportunity to say, I told you so. So maybe you can start out and explain what it is you disagree with that video.
Well, I think the first one, the big one, is that infrastructure is failing in South Africa. So I don't know if I agree with that.
It is something that's happening. It's a real thing.
Well, the power going out, that's been rectified. In my area, the power does not go out as frequently as it used to.
I told you so. I told you so. To sum up this video, South Africa is in a far worse place than it's ever been. On top of the fact that there's no power, there's close to 50% unemployment rate. You know, it's like 48.7 or something like that. There's a huge, I mean, can you imagine half of your population being unemployed? You know what that leads to? When half of the people are lying around out there just ambling around during the day trying to find a way to survive, it just leads to crime. Because there's no other option. What are you going to do? If you want to have clothing, if you want to have food, if you want to be able to buy something, how do you do it? You need money. You're not going to get money by chewing the grass on the side of the road, are you? You have to go and rob people, steal, rape, kill, murder, maim, all that kind of stuff. That's what happens in South Africa. It's incredibly dangerous to live there. It's incredibly difficult to make a living there because not only do you have to put up with the crime and the constant, for lack of a better word, pestering by the government to try and eke every cent they can out of you because it's a corrupt government that has no money and keeps trying to find ways to get people to pay them more money. You have to deal with that, but you also have to deal with the basic infrastructure going out. So you have power going out, traffic lights not working, all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's just a non-starter. Anyone who's smart or had the means has left already. Everyone who's trapped there, I implore you, if you have the chance, if you have the means, it doesn't matter who you are, what background you're from, get out of South Africa. Seriously, you can go to anywhere else in the world, anywhere in the developing world, and it's better than South Africa right now. Because at least you have a chance, because the power's on. Eh? Anyway, guys, I really, really appreciate you watching my videos. Thank you. I hope this is giving you a little bit of insight into where I come from. I do, of course, criticize the Chinese government a lot. That's what my channel is mainly about. But I would like you to see that that's pretty much in my nature, to criticize injustice and poor governance and societal issues, no matter where I am. I criticize very freely the country I was born in, South Africa, and in fact, I think it's a piece of shit country. to be honest with you. And like I said, I will never go back to that country. And I'm glad I left. Incredibly glad I left. It's the best thing I ever did in my life was to leave South Africa. So I'd just like you to know that I'm pretty fair when it comes to my criticism. Anyway, guys, please join me on Friday for The China Show, where we have a lot of laughs and look at the crazy propaganda coming out of China and everything in between. Can't wait to see you there. And of course, you know the drill. As always, stay awesome,